I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Everybody make sure your cell phones are either turned off or on silent. I think we're gonna start in with Mr. Taylor.
Absolutely. Introduce Mr. Taylor and have him talk a little bit about our Kyler Rams program.
Yeah.
That's ours.
Oh, I'm like, wait a minute. What just happened?
Mrs. Folds, you're all set because Mr. Taylor has messed up the.
Yeah, definitely.
Stay and you need to go.
Do you see all the small people back here shaking their heads like, what is this problem?
No, it's not okay. There we go. Yeah. So good evening. Thank you so much for inviting us to come join. I've got a bunch of friends here tonight that want to talk a little bit about Rams. So guys and gals, Gail. We have one Gail today. We have two other ones, but they went home sick. So can you want to come up? Come on, you can. Here, Barrett. Here, Lauren. Jimmy. All right. So these are our December Rams winners. So every single month we have a Rams winner. We have a number of Rams winners across the building. And so these are our December Rams. We have one per grade level that we had join us. So guys, you remember what Rams stands for? Can we tell them?
Respectful, accountable, mindful, and safe.
Yeah,
Great job.
awesome. And of course, we know those go all the way up through the high school. But we just wanted to share a few things about what they did in December to prove what their attributes are about our Rams. So, I didn't even introduce. I'm sorry. Jimmy Yates in 5th grade, Jeremiah Payne in 4th grade. Our 3rd grade student is not here with us tonight. She went home sick today or yesterday. Excuse me. In 2nd grade, we've got Lauren Du Bois. We got Deacon Weber in 1st grade, and our kindergartner is Barrett DeVinny. And our pre-K student went home sick at 10 o'clock this morning. Unfortunately, Charlie went home sick. So, on the chart, I've got exactly why they had it, but they're going to share what they think. So, Jimmy, will you kick us off for us?
I got the Rams Award because when I do respectful, accountable, mindful, and safe, usually others follow, and then we can all be respectful, accountable, mindful, and safe.
Nice, thank you, Jimmy. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
I got the Rams Award because I follow the Rams expectation, and I'm a role model, and I kind to my friends.
Awesome. He absolutely is. All right, we're going to go to Lauren next, okay? Oh, yeah. Oh, I got first grade. Go ahead there, Lauren.
I got my Ram because I help my teachers and help my friends.
Absolutely. Okay, go ahead, Deacon.
I got my 2 Rams Awards because I'm a great role model.
It's a double dipper. We call it a double dipper when we get 2 in the same month. All right, Barrett.
I got the Rams Award for being a nice friend.
Good job. And so if you notice on the board there under Barrett, it says that he greets each challenge with a smile. And so when we were down here this afternoon, guys, remember what we thought about with Barrett as we're sitting here talking?
He was smiling.
Yeah, he had a big smile on his face as we're sitting here like, what a perfect description.
That's how he smiles every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just wanted to share with you just some of the great attributes of our kids. We celebrate a lot of kids every single month. We celebrate our star readers and our Rams students, and these are just perfect examples of it. And if you notice, they only wanted to share a little bit, but you see that there's like paragraphs that we write about the great attributes of our kids every month. So it's just fantastic, okay? All right.
Thank you guys.
Okay, our Rams Awards winners, can you come on up? I have a special token for you, a Red Creek Award. Thank you very much for coming and sharing all about your Rams experiences today. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. What a start, Mr. Taylor. You guys can sneak out if you don't want to stay. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Yeah. In the love.
So that's a very difficult act to follow, Miss Bybee.
I was going to say, this is a much less cute presentation, but I'll do my best. So I'm here just to give you some updates on multi-tier system of supports in Red Creek. Because the last time I talked to you was in May. And a lot of work has been done since then. So I wanted to start just with a quick review of what is MTSS. Again, it's just an organizational tool. It's a framework and a way of thinking that helps us maximize outcomes for all students here in Red Creek in a systematic and hopefully organized way. So the way that we think about all the things that we offer to the students in our district is in a 3-tiered approach. Tier 1 being the foundation that everybody should have access to. It's a differentiated Tier 1 first instruction for all students. And then after that, we use screening data to determine who needs some more support in order to meet the expectations at each grade level. So in an ideal world, Tier 1 meets the needs of at least 80% of our student population. And then Tier 2 is a small group approach for the kids who need one more layer of support. So for example, if a student is having a hard time reaching the grade level benchmark in reading, then we would try to find a small group that meets their need to help them meet the grade level expectations. From there, if students are still struggling, then we do a more individualized approach, and that's Tier 3, and that should be about 5% of the kids. Okay, so my district team thought it was really important for me to share this slide that comes from Midwest PBIS. It's in a lot of the training that we've been to, because it just reinforces that we really do look at the kids that we have here in Red Creek as whole people. Just because you have Tier 3 needs in one area does not mean you are a Tier 3 kid and that's all you get. And so they really, when we reviewed what we wanted to share, we wanted to just remind everybody that that's kind of how we think of people. So, for example, I might be Tier 1 in my early literacy knowledge, but I might need a little extra support in the area of like sourdough bread baking. And I might, if you wanted me to perform in a soccer game with any level of proficiency, I would need like all the possible individualized support and attention. And so that's kind of how we think about the needs of our students as we're looking at their performance. I did also forget to mention that we're not just looking at them academically, we're looking at attendance, we're looking at their behavior, we're looking at their social emotional learning, as well as their academics, because in order to be successful at school, you really need all of those components in place. I have too many papers here. Okay, so teaming, I know that I shared this with you back in May, but just as a refresher, we have different teams that work in our MTSS system. Each team has its own purpose and looks at data with a different lens. And I know that I pre-shared this with you, and you have lots of things to do, so I won't read you this slide, but you're welcome to ask me any questions if you're curious about any of these teams. What I really wanted to share with you is that things work best when our teams are working collaboratively. So we do things like attend the regional MTSS roundtable at BOCES. All of the tiered coaches in each building and myself. We also have a monthly district level meeting after school hours to continue to plan, action plan together and figure out what we do next to continue to improve. And then we have also representatives across our teams so that if something's happening at the tier 1 level in the middle school, somebody from the tier 2 team is there so that we know, like, oh, we're not double dipping and trying to problem solve the same problem in maybe opposing ways. And just a reminder that MTSS is about organizing and building up for our students. So we're always thinking about what do we have to offer, what interventions do we have that we know work well and are evidence-based, and that we're really trying to solidify what we currently have before we expand too quickly, but also with the mindset that sometimes kids are going to need things that we don't have available, so being open-minded as well. From here I'm going to share some data with you from each building and at each tier. All of this data comes from our tiered fidelity inventory that we complete with our BOCES MTSS specialist who comes here and works with each team to complete this inventory. It's basically like a rubric. At each tier there are qualities that we're looking for, and that the creators of this say that 70% or better is what we're aiming for. So you can see in Kyler that we have great systems in place. That doesn't mean that we're not continuing to work and to build. So over the summer we worked really hard to create a resource map, which basically says if a kid is having a hard time in reading, these are the options we have for them. If a student needs some social emotional support, these are the options we currently have for them. And this is also what would qualify a student for that service. We're continuing to work on what is the cutoff point for when we fade that support out. So that's kind of our next step there. We also are working on building our communication outside of our team. So we're sharing this tier fidelity information with our building. We created a feedback survey last year. We have a parent liaison on some of our teams. So those are all some action items that have happened since we completed this back in May. I forgot to say that earlier, that this information is from last May, and from there we created an action plan. So things have happened since then. So in Kyler, I really just want to highlight all of the hard work that's happening across the board, kind of. Not only do the classroom teachers and interventionists have new curriculum in ELA and math, but they're also tracking all of their interventions through our Panorama data system, which makes it easy for us to say, look at all of the interventions we've provided to students this year. The next slide also shows that we can see how effective our interventions are, as well as how many interventions addressed social emotional learning versus ELA or math. In addition to those quick, big picture bits of information and reports we have available through Panorama, each student has their own individual profile that shows all of the interventions that they've had that school year. And then you can also dig down deeper to go into prior school years, which will help us know if an intervention worked or didn't work for the student in the past. So here you can see a reading intervention that happened. You can see that gray line is the trajectory from their baseline score to the goal that the teacher set by the end of their 6-week intervention. And then those green dots above the line are where the students scored on their progress monitoring. So this has been a really wonderful tool for our data review process. In the middle school, again, we're all hovering right around 70%, which is our goal. We had really great progress in the middle school last year on our TFI, and continue to work there. One thing we wanted to highlight is just as a result of the behavior data that we're looking at, we offer some professional development in response to what we were seeing. And I have just a sample slide from that. Professional development opportunity on restorative practices. So how are we handling students when they're having a hard time? And what does our process look like proactively and in response to? At the high school, this is the area we have the most progress to make, and we're working really hard to do that. Since this time in May, we've done lots of work, especially at that tier 1 level. Obviously, if you have a tier 1 issue, you don't want to start with small groups, you want to start on a large scale problem solving. So this year we kicked off the year with our core values, like Mr. Taylor said, respectful, accountable, mindful, and safe. That's what we believe is important for students and adults to embody here in Red Creek. And so we kicked off the year with some lessons about what it looks like to be respectful, accountable, mindful, and safe at the high school level. And then we also updated our behavior flow chart just to make a really clear process for when a student is not meeting those expectations. And that's what that looks like. That was all shared out at the beginning of the year. And then last but not least, just all of this work happens with a lot of input. It's not a Haley Bybee thing. I just bring the pieces together. We've got some really great tiered coaches at all 3 buildings. We have an amazing BOCES resource in Kristen DeFeo. Obviously, all of the work we do has no traction without the support of our administrative team. And my closing word is really just that our teams are working really hard for the success of all of our students. And when we're sitting down and spending all of this time meeting and looking at data and problem solving, it's really because we're here for the success of all of our kids. So thank you for the opportunity to share all of this with you and for your dedication to our school district as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, did you want to talk about? Thank you. Mr. Norman?
Thank you. Yes, update on our MVPs for this month. This is an absolutely astounding amount of MVPs issued out. I was really nervous with the break that we had, the 2 weeks off around the holiday recess, that we might see a dip in, but it was clear that everybody was in the holiday spirit and really trying to recognize some of the efforts of their coworkers or from the community. As I've been doing, I'd like to just highlight a handful of them from the list. First, our mechanic, Sean Brown. Sean goes out of his way to make sure that the fleet is always in good shape and running. No matter what time of the day it is, you can call him and he will be there to help the district out, whether it's driving, working on a bus, or snow plowing. He has been a great asset to the district as our head mechanic at the bus garage. One of our high school special education teachers, Melissa Clement. I've had the pleasure of seeing Mrs. Clement in action for the last year and a half. She is absolutely outstanding in her work. Her support of students, her lessons, and her overall commitment to our school is great. We are lucky to have her as part of our school. And last, today, I'll read a third one from Billy DeMars. Billy is an invaluable member of the athletic event staff. Rain or shine, and through thick and thin, Billy is always ready to man his post. The athletic department could not exist without Billy DeMars. So, again, just when you look at the list and you know what some of the job responsibilities are of the people or their work titles, this is not just for teachers. It really highlights all the different areas that our school encompasses. And again, these are coming from staff members, they're coming from parents, they're coming from community members. So it's really great recognition for so many of our folks.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna keep going here. Can I have a motion for the minutes from the December 18th meeting, please? Mrs. Folds, and a second by Mrs. Dingman. Questions, corrections? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, moving on. The financial reports,
I'd like to make a motion for D1 through 5.
I would take that. Thank you. Can I have a second, please? Mrs. Kaiser? Any questions on this group? You ready?
Mrs. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Folds?
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman?
Yes.
Mrs. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Mrs. Allen? And Mrs. Madigan?
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion E1 through 4.
Mrs. Dingman, could I possibly ask you to amend that to remove E3E? Or, I'm sorry,
Yes.
E33?
Yes.
Thank you. Could I have a second? Mrs. Kaiser? It's gonna be E1 through 4 with the exception of E33. That couldn't have been more challenging to pull out.
Tongue twister.
Yeah. All right, any questions on this group? And you're ready.
Mrs. Decker? Yes. Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Folds?
Yes.
And Mrs. Madigan?
Yes, thank you. Okay. I take a motion for E33, please. Mrs. Folds and a second by Mrs. Allen. I just wanted to give Mr. Van Orman an opportunity when I understand Mr. Wallace is going to retire on us here, so we gotta make fun of him like we do everybody else. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Whatever
it's-
number retirement this is for him.
Yeah, for Mr. Wallace, it's a retire. It's another one of those tongue twisters. Obviously, Mr. Wallace worked for us several years ago and then left us to go to Oswego City School District, where he retired. He came back last year to help us out and stayed on. The original plan was for Mr. Wallace to stay for us for 1 year. We asked him to stay on a second year, and as you can see, it's time for Pat to move on and again enjoy his retirement. So I just again wanted to thank Pat for all his selfless acts. We were talking briefly about it administratively the other day, and from things like helping at our concerts and dressing up as Santa Claus and allowing families to get pictures with him, to his work around our junior supper. I think one of the themes for me that always sums up Pat is he wanted to do what was best for kids, and I think he exemplified that. He came back and helped us live that here. So good luck again to Pat in his second retirement. He's not really good at retiring, so I'm sure he's busy doing all the other things that he wants to do at this point. So thank you, Pat, and good luck in retirement.
In true Red Creek fashion, though, does anyone actually retire from here? So who knows? He'll maybe on the sub list. So.
We seem to find quite a few of those.
Isn't he friends with Mr. Thomas?
They are.
Anybody have anything else?
Mrs. Allen? Mrs. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Mrs. Decker?
Yes.
And Mrs. Madigan?
Yes, thank you. Okay, F, new business. I have a motion for some, all. Mrs. Folds?
Make a motion for that 1 through 11.
Okay. Can I have a second for that? Mrs. Kaiser? Any questions on this group?
I have a question on F4.
Okay.
I'm just, how are those, like, how is that decided to like be distributed? If it's just, donated at random, and where does it go from there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we received those, and Sharon Rosati, our social worker, manages a lot of our at-need family programs, whether it's with food or clothing. So we immediately contacted with Sharon. This was kind of a late addition when we received that. So Sharon went right down the list of families that had received and had not received based on things that we had collected thus far in the holiday season, and she just went right down that list to the next sets of families, so that we were able to provide for more families. So very appreciative.
Other questions?
Yep, I have another question, F7, please. Again, on this, I know it was asked ahead of time, but what sparked this particular, like, why now with these?
Yeah, because we're in the process of, we'll be breaking ground on our capital project this spring. So this is kind of the appropriate time for us as we start to get into that process to do that. It would have been premature prior to having contracts with people to really designate some of those things. So you only would authorize these designations during a building project. So it's not something we would have as a standing item throughout time. It only comes into play when we have capital projects.
Do you mind if I add to that? So during that process, if you can get a change order because, that light was supposed to be, 8 inches instead of 7. And if you need to have a change order made, it will delay you until you have board authorization a month, which then delays the project out. Folks need to finish up with a certain time. So it's very common to have a change order authorization, so you don't delay the project.
I have 2 questions about this. Are these pretty common amounts for change orders to be during capital projects?
So yeah, this is within the allowable rate for services.
Okay.
Yes.
Does this cover the whole life of the capital project?
Yes.
So I would just say if there are questions though about this stuff, this was, we want to take that opportunity to send things in ahead of time so that we can all work through. We had already had a question about this, so I'm just saying, let's make sure that we do our due diligence and get these questions in ahead of time.
Well, I did look at the policy you referenced, and I couldn't find the answer in the policy.
I just assumed if there were more follow-up questions, they would have came prior to the meeting. Any other questions? Okay, when you're ready.
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Dingman?
Yes.
Mrs. Decker?
Yes.
Mrs. Folds?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser? Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
And Mrs. Madigan?
Yes, thank you. Okay, administrative reports?
Mr. Walter?
Yes.
What is the Captain's Club?
That is a group of student leaders. Some are designated captains by their coaches, others, I just reached, not every team has a captain. So like Mr. Briggs, I just said, give me a couple student leaders that you'd like to work with, that I could work with this season. So we just get together, and again, during the fall, our meetings went through just basically sportsmanship, things that kids thought that we didn't have that they had seen somewhere else, just basically kind of a conversation to start moving in a certain direction on things that the kids thought that we needed to change. We're going to continue to do that again sportsmanship is something that I've been talking to the students about on a more casual basis, but we're gonna try to work and get some student leaders and sort to lead our crowds and have a more organized student section, things like that. So just working with the kids, getting their opinions on what we should do and working with them as best I can to, you know, make things fit their needs and make sure everybody has everything they need.
Thank you.
It's a new addition this year, something Mr. Welcher felt strongly about and tried to bring it to me so that we could incorporate more student voice in some of the things that we're doing around our athletic
Yeah, there's some
programs.
student leadership events through Section 5 coming up, but we'll take that group too as well. First one is in March, I believe, so yeah, it's been fun, and it's tough to get everybody together because our student leaders are so busy, and I'm busy too, so it's hard to find days where we can all get together, but we're doing our best, and we have a great bunch of students working with me through the fall and winter so far, so it's been great.
Other questions?
Similarly, what is the principal's cabinet?
So, principals cabinet's organized into a couple of different groupings. We've got, I asked from each one of the class advisors that they always send at least one representative from each group, as well as we invited principals appointees. So kids who may not feel comfortable to put themselves out there, you know. So very much in the very same breath as Mr. Welcher's program, this is giving voice to the kids. And, you know, we started, we're 2 meetings in, we've started different things that the kids like, and some of them are small, some of them are big. Some things like the anonymous reporting of bullying and giving them a mechanism on how to do that. A selected area for student announcements on a bulletin board near my office. So, like, just trying to really empower the kids to try to propose changes. So we're looking to really roll with that for the rest of the year, and it's honestly an amazing pleasure for me to sit with those kids. So, basically the same thing.
Anything else? Okay. Mr. Van Orman, did you want to talk about enrollment?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, another month on our chart. Attendance rates are holding steady through the sickness. We didn't count Mr. Taylor's sick kiddos from today in that chart yet. We're, you know, showed we're down 2 kids, but just today I signed 5 student registration packets. So you know, that's kind of a big boost. As I continue to bang this drum, you know, when you look at the other thing that I drew attention to in this was when you look at the blue columns on the right hand side, and you look at the average amounts per month. You know, overall, UPK is down. And our current 7th and 12th graders are down. The rest of our grades are either flat or up. But, you know, the challenge to a lot of these things is it's not just a number. It's a grade level. So if a grade level loses 2 kids, it doesn't change anything from a structural standpoint. But if each grade loses 2 kids, it's a massive amount of change to our enrollment, but minor changes or no change to our building procedures, staffing, those kind of things. So, you know, we haven't had this type of a report before, so as we're continuing to build it and monitor where we're going with those, but because our population is what it is, 5 students today, you know, bumps us right back up, you know, so it's very volatile when we get those things. So that's that. I also wanted to take the platform here and mention that we are pleased to be able to say that Mr. Smiley and some of our administrators have been working very hard to bring a program called Steered Straight to our district. It'll be in the coming weeks, January 30th. It'll include presentation assemblies within all 3 of our buildings, and then a special event at night for families and parents, mainly aimed at our middle and high school target audience for families of middle and high school students, around the topics of synthetic drugs, e-cigarettes, vapes, alcohol, drug use. So families should have received correspondence today in Parent Square. And we're going to continue to kind of pump that information out over the coming weeks to encourage families to come to the auditorium on Thursday, January 30th, to hear and see from experts around some of those topics, substance abuse, vapes, things like that. So it's something, of course, that we're always aware of. We understand the dangers. We're always looking to provide positive support and reinforcement around. So this is just another step in education and awareness for our students and our families on, a very important topic. So families will see more coming out on that. Two other positive notes. I wanted to send a shout out to our drama club over the weekend. Our drama club performed their one-act plays. So shout out to all of our student thespians who got up on stage, and it's so rewarding, and when they get up on stage, it can be a very overwhelming task to stand in front of a studio audience and not get a lot of feedback just because everybody's quiet until you hear the cheers. So it's a huge risk for our students. It's great for them to get out there. Another shout out to our art department. We had a number of students that recently were just recognized as Gold Key and honorable mention across Central New York for our Scholastic Art Awards. Our art program has been very well represented over the years in this program, and this year, again, is another year of that. We happen to have a board member's child who received a couple recognitions in that this year. So congratulations to all of our art award winners. Just kind of a nice art month with the one-act plays and then our Scholastic Art Awards. So just wanted to send a shout out to those those groups right now.
Okay, thank you. Committee updates. Does anybody have anything they want to share?
I'll just say Mrs. Bimini shared an update regarding the last meeting of the curriculum and instruction group, and a lot of that information is outlined in her own report, but I just saw a lot of focus on building student resilience, critical thinking, and really promoting student-centered learning. So they're doing a lot of amazing work. Way over my head, some of the things, but yeah, they're doing great work, and I just want to say great job.
Great. Anybody else?
I've got just a couple of things from the community center. The new equipment that is on order has been delayed a couple of weeks, but hopefully by the end of January, we'll start seeing some new pieces of equipment in the community center, so that'll be nice.
Wednesday, we should have it.
That's Wednesday? No, because it's already January 15th. I don't quite understand how that happened, but here we are.
Correct.
The meeting minutes are also available upon request on our website, so that's a nice addition too, to start seeing that on the website, on the district website. And there's been some continued discussion on increasing and retaining numbers, so that's just an ongoing conversation that really happens on a monthly basis. So
That's good.
yeah, thank you.
PTA is planning their Shamrock Jig that we kind of took a break from during COVID, but kids always love it, and working on some fundraisers. So.
I got distracted by
Oh.
John's son. Sorry.
It's a very fun distraction.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can come all the time, Jen. Okay, thank you.
The policy.
I know.
The policy committee has been working diligently with updating policy. You'll see some more next week.
Wonderful. Anybody else?
Finance meeting next week. Soon.
No.
No.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if you were just talking to Jen's son or
We're just talking
Oh.
amongst ourselves.
All right. I would take a motion to move into executive for negotiations and a litigation matter, please. Mrs. Kaiser and Mrs. Foltz. Thank you very much. Barrett, thanks for sticking it out.